Hi, Dr. P here to talk about GenCon. I call GenCon a story game convention. It started out as a game convention some 40 years ago in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, hence the name. Later it was in Milwaukee, and nowadays it's in Indianapolis, Indiana, as it outgrew its venues. Originally it was an RPG convention and associated with Dungeons & Dragons and TSR, which was based in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Now it's co-owned by the founder of Wizards of the Coast, who is no longer associated with Wizards of the Coast. 56,614 unique attendees in 2014, and a turnstile of 184,699, so it is bigger than Essen Spiel in Germany. It has more than doubled since 2009. And some of that is games, some of that is the addition of other kinds of genres. And that's why I call it a story convention rather than a game convention. It's held in the Indiana Convention Center, which is very, very large, and several large downtown hotels. This year all the independent game seminars were pushed into a hotel because there was no room anymore in the ICC. So we have role-playing games, board games, card games, miniatures, though they're not prominent, video games, which are not prominent, cosplay, costumes, which is prominent, fiction writing is prominent, film, comics, and more, all related to entertaining stories. So it's a story convention as much as a game convention. And the games as well tend to be story-oriented. So you don't see much in the way of traditional war games there. You don't see much in the way of abstract games. It's games that have stories attached. They also have big-name guests of honor. Brandon Sanderson was there in 2013. Jim Butcher, author of the Dresden Files, was there in 2014. And there are media guests, and there are also 30 industry insider guests of honor. I was one of those in 2013, and perhaps I will be again. Over 14,000 events in 2014. This photograph is just one of many rooms in a relatively small room full of people playing games. Games, adventures, seminars, workshops, cosplay parade, artists, authors, designers, a stupendous exhibition area. And lots of things for non-gaming family members to do as well. Here is a ballroom full of role-playing gamers before 9 a.m. And if you know much about people who go to game conventions, usually at 9 a.m. it's dead, but GenCon is so busy and so crowded that all these people were playing before 9 a.m. And this is just part of the room, not the whole room. The whole room is much larger. Here are people waiting for the exhibit hall to open at 10 a.m. And you can see farther toward the back, it's an even denser crowd because one of several entrances is back here. Up here, where the photograph is actually taken, there's no entrance. This is inside the exhibition hall, and this is a large booth where the publisher had tables to demo their game, so people could come and play the game a little bit and decide whether they wanted to buy it. This is very common at GenCon. And I've taken some photographs of some unusual things that were for sale. Here are some of the very expensive tables made specifically for gaming. Miniature buildings being sold. It's one book publisher, McFarland, which is a publisher from North Carolina, independent publisher that publishes 400 or 500 books a year, and they published my book, Game Design, so I threw it in here. Edged Weapons reproductions. And here is one way to beat the high hotel costs, which in central Indianapolis are over $200 per night, and that's convention rates. This was a person who was actually sleeping at the entrance to a church. There is a person in there. Parking in multi-story parking lots is not cheap. I stay in a hotel several miles out. I park in a deck and I hike a half mile or more to the convention center, stay there all day, hike back to the parking deck, and go back to my hotel. Downtown Indianapolis is quite interesting. It's quite active. Also, there's the football and basketball stadiums there. Things like electric car rental, which I had never seen before. Fair number of restaurants, quite apart from the food truck line that serves the convention. They call it the best 4 days in gaming. You could argue about whether that's true, but it's certainly the most active 4 days in gaming. And if you're somebody who is interested in gaming in general, then if you're going to go to a convention, this may be the one to go to. I have to travel 650 miles each way to get there, but I find it to be worthwhile nowadays.